Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of Sideline Sports Podcast. I'm Alexnaveja, and with me today is James H. Williams, as he goes by on Twitter.
Yes.
I have to add the H, otherwise it's not really Mr. James H. Williams.
Yeah, the name is a little too common, so you're trying to get in those Google search rankings, you got to have an initial in there. So there it is.
And at some point, it's just going to be, you put James, and then it's going to be H. Williams that comes out on its own, right?
I kind of thought about that, but we'll see. We're working our way towards that, so we'll see.
Real quick, just wanted to say thank you so much to everybody for liking and subscribing to the YouTube channel. I really appreciate it. And episode 3 actually reached over 100 views. So we're getting there little by little, James. But we have you here on a special episode because the NFL season is starting this weekend.
Yes.
And it's my understanding that you got to cover the Rams.
Yes, I did. So it was a good experience, honestly. I was out there I wasn't there for the first week of the preseason slate that they had, but those last 3 weeks I was there. I learned a lot, not only about myself, but about the Rams, obviously. So much stuff going on. And as I kind of mentioned to you before we started recording, this was a boring preseason, off-season for the Rams, just because there was no Aaron Donald holdout, there was no Todd Gurley holdout, there's still questions about his knee, but, I saw him during practice. He looked fine. The Rams should be pretty good. And a treat was actually seen, especially for, if compared to years prior where Aaron Donald's holding out and you're not seeing him until week 1 of the season, getting to see Aaron Donald practice was a treat, honestly, just because he was going full speed like he was in a game. His footwork, everything was so quick. He doesn't take a day off. He had a rest day or two. But even during practice against his own teammates, he was going like full speed. It was great. It was
remember, you were talking about the Defensive Player of the Year as well. Yeah. So, a player like that has to just have no days off.
And not only the Defensive Player of the Year, he's rated 99 on Madden, considered the best player in the game. I think he was number 1. He was voted number 1 by his peers in the NFL. As the number 1 overall player in the game on NFL Network's Top 100, I believe. So He's no joke, and I saw it firsthand, and he's a big dude. I was actually able to go into the locker room, talk to some of the guys. There was a time or two where I'm standing there waiting for someone to kind of finish what they were doing after practice so I can do an interview, and Aaron Donald will walk right by, and he's like, excuse me, and I'm trying to get a water out of the cooler. And he's super nice, super humble.
Polite guy.
Yeah, super polite. It's just kind of I was looking down at my phone, getting my questions ready, and this big old man is
gargantuous man right now.
Says, excuse me, and I'm like,
oh. Whoa, it's Aaron
Go
Donald.
ahead, Aaron Donald. Let me get out of your way, sir. But no, so humble dude, super nice. He didn't know who I was, didn't have to say excuse me or anything, but I'm glad he did. Super nice dude. So, yeah.
Well, let's cut to the chase, James, and we're going to talk about the elephant that's in the room right now. We just saw Jared Goff got that 4-year extension, and I know you were talking about before the show that you already knew it was coming. The whole entire team was already hinting to it. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So there was talk. Aaron Donald, Todd Gurley, and Jared Goff are all 3 players. Obviously, they're the most popular players, I would say, on the roster. So those guys were scheduled. One of them every day throughout the week would talk to the media as a group, just so they're not having their locker room crowded around and whatnot. So the media would continue to ask at different points whenever Goff was at the podium to say, how's the contract extension going along? Or are you following along with the Dak Prescott situation in Dallas, because he was asking for $40 million or something along that line.
Wow.
And Goff's like, yeah, I'm kind of watching over it. And I think there was some talk that they were working towards a contract extension. So again, I wasn't surprised. I think it's smart to get it done before the season starts. And it almost despite the fact that the Rams are in LA and they're in such a big market, that whole storyline came and went so quick because I woke up this morning. We're recording this on a Wednesday. Zeke came back from his little holdout and is ready to play. He signed his deal and coming in on down from Riverside That's all everyone's talking about. They're not. Jared Goff's already old news. I think Jared Goff's extension was the largest guaranteed contract, I forget the number, for any NFL quarterback, or at least he's the highest quarterback paid at the moment. Surpassing, was it Mahomes, who I think had a contract extension after his very successful or MVP season this past year. So, wasn't surprised. Well deserved, I would think, for Jared Goff, who's played at Cal, has only been a few years, had to overcome the Jeff Fisher hurdle, and reached the Super Bowl with the Rams. So they didn't win. They only scored 3 points, so those 3 points didn't come from the offense, but it was enough to showcase what the future may be for the Rams, especially with the new stadium coming along here pretty soon.
I think that's going to be some pretty big news right then and there.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I really think the Rams are going to be another Super Bowl team, and I'm not going to sleep on them. And you know what? You're talking about Patrick Mahomes. I would not mind seeing that Super Bowl Mahomes versus Goff right there. That would be a nice one.
I'm excited to see that, and part of me is almost afraid to kind of talk about the upcoming Super Bowl because you just don't know what's going to happen in between there. I mean, if we learned anything from USC this past week, JT Daniels could be named the starter and go out in the first half of the season opener.
Right.
So the same thing could happen on Goff. Not saying that can or will happen to Goff, but you never know. But yeah, I mean, even just looking ahead to the first couple weeks of the season, they open against Carolina on the road against Cam Newton and company. But the Saints game, the Saints and the Rams, if we all know how that NFC Championship game went, the controversial call with Coleman, where I think it was like a PI and they didn't call it, and that whole drama.
Mm-hmm.
That's like week 3 on the schedule, so it's like there's a lot to look forward to in the beginning half of the season, let alone like getting ahead into the Super Bowl. But I do think they're a contender. A lot of people aren't really even talking about the Rams, which is kind of surprising when it comes to Super Bowl because they're all talking about like the Saints and some of these other sleeper teams and the Browns and probably not reaching the Super Bowl. There was these expectations for even you get the Colts. Everyone's talking about we're talking about the Colts before the Andrew Luck retirement, and you can't count out the Patriots and yada yada. And the Rams, like I'm listening to national radio thinking they're going to talk about the Rams, and they're not. No one's talking about the Rams. I don't know how much of that goes into a boring preseason they had. But when you look and you get in that locker room and you're there at the practices for the Rams, there was a lot still to kind of talk about. So it was a pretty busy preseason stretch for me, considering that was a boring offseason or preseason. There was a lot going on, if you ask me. So even just some of the young guys, when you look at Dakota Allen, who was on Last Chance U, a show I didn't really watch, but I kind of want to go back and watch. After learning and talking with Dakota Allen, who was a rookie, undrafted linebacker that they picked up this year. He actually made the practice squad. I mean, they have some new guys on the offensive line, which again goes back to Jared Goff. They had a pretty veteran starting 5 up front to protect Goff. That is not the case. I got 2 new guys who were with the team last year but didn't play a whole lot. So they're going to... This Carolina game on the road will be their first start. I think that's Joe Noteboom and Brian Allen, who is the center. So not only are you looking for someone who's going to protect, but build that chemistry with Goff, to snap him the ball, make sure the ball is getting out on time, and make sure Goff's doing his job so the offense can move and score the points that they were during the regular season last year. So.
Of course. And we're just hoping that the offensive line for the Rams could be able to buy Jared Goff time because we've all seen you give Goff at least 2-3 seconds and that kid will make something happen with the ball. His passes are darts and they're dynamite.
They're crisp. And that was no different during practice. And it doesn't hurt when you have a few offensive weapons, not just one receiver, one running back. He has a few different guys. Cooper Kupp is coming back. He was injured last year and missed a lot of time for the Rams last year. You have Todd Gurley. There's still some questions about the knee and how, questions around his production and what happened in the Super Bowl, him not really showing up. So he has a lot to prove, and I'm sure he has a chip on his shoulder coming into this season. Goff, Gurley, they're all kind of coming in fresh when you think about it, and they didn't play a single snap during the preseason. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're a little bit rusty. They claim they won't be rusty coming into the season opener, but it might be a little fill-out process. So if the opening game against the Panthers doesn't go very smoothly, at least to start, just hold on. Things will get better. So, they're kind of getting a feel for it, which was kind of weird. I know last year during the preseason, McVay was playing some of those starters, but I'll give McVay credit. Coach Sean McVay, he would the whole preseason just, we're not going to play our starters, and he stuck to his guns, and there was one instance where he played someone who was going to be a potential starter, and Micah Kaiser, and he got injured. So, and he's going to be out. They put him on IR to start the season, so you won't see him at least for the first 6 or 7 weeks. So he's dealing with the pec injury. He had surgery. He's on IR. But that was a guy who was expected to be a starter for them, and they won't have him. So McVay did learn his lesson. He stuck to his guns the rest of the way and didn't play any of his starters. So they'll be fresh. They might be a little rusty, but they'll be fresh and ready to go.
Right.
So,
James, for those of us that, we don't really get to see the training camps or anything like that over there in UC Irvine, tell us what it's like to be out there, to be able to cover the Los Angeles Rams. This is a team that went to the Super Bowl last year. What was the energy like? What were the vibes like?
So it was a little weird, actually. So first of all, I went to a Chargers practice last season, and I just went as a fan. I wasn't like media or credentialed or anything. I just went, just wanted to check it out. Now that we have 2 teams in LA, you can kind of do things like that. And there was fans. It was packed. The Saints it was one of those dual practices last year between the Chargers and the Saints. So I was kind of expecting the same thing. And I think they might have started the season or the preseason practicing at UCI. And I think they even spent a week or a few days with the Chargers. When I was going to Thousand Oaks. And so from Riverside, that was like a 2-hour drive, 2.5-hour drive going there, an hour and a half coming back. So it was worth it, though. It was worth it. Don't get me wrong. So they weren't at UCI. There were no fans. It was pretty much just the team. And I kind of felt like a fly on the wall. We didn't get to watch the whole practice. We only got to watch bits and pieces. But even the bits and pieces that we got to see and going in the locker room and talking to them, was you learn a lot. Like, as a journalist who's getting these opportunities to do these things, cover these NFL teams.
You've already seen the training camps, and you've seen them at work, and you've seen actually how nice the players are, as you mentioned before. What can you say about this upcoming season now?
I will tell you this. If they are as nice as they were to me, as they are to the players they're playing against, they won't win a lot of games. But I don't think that will be the problem, especially with Aaron Donald. I'm sure he could be as nasty as he wants on the field. I think, though, you kind of mentioned the Super Bowl and them getting back. I think that they could get to the Super Bowl again. They're definitely a playoff team. They are in a division with some...
Maybe not the best of contention.
Maybe not the best, but I'm trying to... Oh, but the Seahawks did get Jadeveon Clowney, which makes things interesting. They'll play against them at least twice this year, being in the same division. I think the Rams are still the best. It's all about being healthy, and McVay knows this. He's fully aware of it. Like I mentioned, during the preseason, didn't play the starters a whole lot. He's hoping that will help save the tires a little bit on some of those guys, especially Gurley. I think as long as Gurley is healthy, your quarterback and Jared Goff is healthy, they should be pretty successful. Again, I would say more so Todd Gurley than Jared Goff, because yes, you gave Jared Goff the extension. He's in good hands. He's your guy going forward. But they do have Blake Bortles as a backup, who has been a starter. He made a deep, I don't want to say a deep playoff run, but he did make a playoff runs of sort, or had a decent regular season with the Jags not too long ago. Looked pretty good in the preseason, so he's a guy that could fill in for them if Goff were to go down or something happens. But the biggest question mark is on Gurley still in that knee.
I just want to say thank you so much to James H. Williams, former colleague of mine, for coming on to the show. We appreciate all the information that you gave us on the Rams, and it looks like it's going to be a very good upcoming year for them.
It should be, and of course, I was happy to be here. Thank you again for having me. If you ever need me back, let me know. The season is still young, and we have a long way to go. 16 weeks during the regular season, and we'll see where the postseason will take the Rams this year.
And guys, if you really liked the content today, make sure to hit the thumbs up button and make sure to subscribe on the YouTube channel. I'm Alex Naveja, and again, this was James H. Williams signing off on today's episode. See you guys later.
You have a good one.